Commander Teo stood in the observation window of his ship and looked out at the darkness ahead. The stars here were different. They seemed to shine with less brightness, as if something was eating the light. Around him, the vast graveyard of space held the broken remains of thousands of ships. No one spoke about this place. In all the galaxy, in every star system and every corner of space, the warning was the same. Never go near the dead zone. Never cross the boundary. The Carillion frontier fleet had been patrolling the outer edges of known space for many years. Commander Teo was a good soldier, careful and smart. He had never had a reason to go deeper into this empty region. But today was different. Today they had received a signal. Ji Woo, the young navigator, sat at her station watching the signals on her screen. Her fingers moved quickly over the controls. She was worried. Everyone on the bridge could feel it. The signal was weak, but it was real. It was coming from inside the dead zone. "Captain," Ji Woo said quietly, "the signal is from a merchant ship called the Bright Star. They crossed into restricted space about 2 hours ago. They were carrying trade goods to the eastern colonies." Mina, the communications officer, looked at the screen with fear in her eyes. Mina was experienced and brave, but everyone knew what the dead zone meant. "Sir, we should report this to command. They would not want us to go in there." Teo closed his eyes for a moment. He could feel the weight of the decision in front of him. To enter the dead zone was against every rule, every warning, every order he had ever received. Starship crews trained for many things, but no one trained for what might happen in that space. The stories said ships disappeared there. Ships were destroyed. Some said intelligent things lived there, hunting anything that moved. Others said it was just a cursed place where nothing could survive. But there were people in there. Real people. People who had families waiting for them at home. "Get me a route," Teo said. His voice was calm, but it took all his strength to speak the words. "Calculate the fastest way to reach that signal. We are going in." Ji Woo's hands froze above her controls. Mina stood up from her seat. The other officers on the bridge looked at each other with uncertainty. "Sir," Mina said carefully, "Command will not be happy about this. The protocols are very clear. The dead zone is forbidden space." "I know," Teo replied. He turned away from the window and looked at his crew. These were good people. They trusted him. He could see the fear in their faces, but he could also see something else. They wanted to help. They wanted to save those people too. "But we will deal with command later. Right now, I am going to save that crew." The ship began to move forward. The engines hummed with power as the Carillion frontier began its slow journey into the forbidden space. As they passed the boundary, something changed. The darkness seemed to grow thicker. The stars behind them looked farther away, as if they were already leaving the normal universe behind. Hours passed. The crew worked in silence. The only sounds were the computers and the soft voices of officers giving orders. They could see the wrecks now, ships of every size and type, floating dead in the emptiness. Some were old, falling apart, their metal turning into rust and dust. Others were newer, their hulls still shiny, but their insides were empty and dark. "How many ships are here?" asked one of the young officers, a man named Sung Ho. He was staring out at the graveyard with wide eyes. "Hundreds," Ji Woo answered. She did not look away from her screen. "Maybe thousands. I have never seen anything like this." The signal from the Bright Star was getting stronger. They were getting close now. Teo felt his heart beating faster. Something felt wrong. The air on the bridge seemed heavier, as if they were all holding their breath together. Then Mina made a sound, a small gasp. "Captain, we have movement. Something is moving near the signal location." Every officer moved closer to their screens. On the main view screen, they could see something. It was a ship. It was small, much smaller than the Carillion frontier, but it moved with purpose. It moved with life. As they watched, The mysterious ship turned and seemed to notice them. Its hull was dark, almost black, and it had lines and shapes that looked different from anything in the known galaxy. This was not a ship from any civilization Teo knew. This was something else. This was something from the dead zone. "All stop," Teo commanded. "Cut engines to silent running. Minna, try to communicate. Find out what they want." The ship continued to move toward them, slowly and carefully. It was not attacking. It was not showing any weapons, but it was watching them. Teo could feel the weight of its attention, like invisible eyes studying the Carillion frontier. Minna worked on the communications system, sending out peace signals in every language the galaxy knew. For a long time, there was no answer. Then a response came through. Not in words, but in something else. Images began to appear on the screens. They showed the bright star floating in space. They showed human figures inside the ship, still alive. The message was clear, without any words. "We have them. They are safe." But then the image changed. It showed something else. It showed the Carillion frontier. It showed all the crew members on the bridge, each one named and identified. The message was even clearer now. "We see you, we know you, and we are watching." Then the mysterious ship moved. It turned and began to fly away from them. As it passed near the bright star, the merchant ship began to move. The two ships moved together deeper into the dead zone, disappearing into the darkness. Teo stood frozen. His crew was waiting for orders, but he could not speak. He had entered the forbidden space. He had encountered something unknown, and he had learned the most important lesson of all. Something lived here. Something intelligent lived here. Something that had been protecting this space for a very, very long time. Minna broke the silence. Her voice was small and afraid. "Sir, what do we do now?" Teo looked at the place where the mysterious ship had disappeared. He thought about the galaxy beyond the boundary, about the billions of people who lived their lives without knowing the truth. He thought about the warning that had protected this space for so long. The warning that had kept everyone away. Now he understood. The warning was real, but it was not a warning about danger. It was a warning about something else. It was a warning about something so powerful, so organized, so completely certain of itself that it did not need to attack. It only needed to be seen once, and then everyone would understand the rules. "Take us forward," Teo said quietly. "Slowly. We are going to make contact." The communication channel opened with a sound like wind moving across empty space. When the voice came through, it spoke the common language of the galaxy, but there was something different about it. The accent was old and heavy, like someone speaking from very far away in time. "This is Commander Q Su of the Human Defense Force. You are in restricted space. By the laws of isolation, I should have destroyed your ship already." The bridge of the Carillion frontier went silent. Human. The word hung in everyone's mind. Humans. The word that mothers used to scare their children into listening. The word that was used in old stories about the Wild Age, when the galaxy was young and dangerous and full of violence. Teo moved to the communications station. His hands were steady, but his mind was moving very fast. "I am Commander Teo of the Carillion Frontier Fleet. We came to rescue a merchant ship that entered your space by accident. We mean no harm." There was a long pause. Teo could hear something in the background of the transmission. It sounded like music, but different from any music he had ever heard. Finally, Commander Q Su spoke again. "Send a shuttle with 10 officers. Bring your command staff. Come to the station designated as Outpost 7. You will receive coordinates. If you try to bring weapons or to gather information about our forces, I will kill you all immediately. If you understand, send confirmation." Minna looked at Teo with worry. This was a test. This was a situation where things could go wrong very quickly. But Teo nodded. He was going to meet the humans. He was going to see what they really were. The shuttle trip felt like it lasted forever, even though it was only a short distance. Tayo brought Ji-woo with him, because she was smart and could remember everything she saw. He brought Min-ah because she was brave. He brought 3 security officers, though he knew that weapons would not help them if the humans wanted to kill them. He brought 2 of his senior officers, Sung-ho and Hai-jun, who were good at thinking quickly. The station appeared in front of them slowly. It was very old. They could see that immediately. Parts of it were made from metal that looked ancient, scarred and marked by time. But other parts were new and clean and strong. The station had been built and rebuilt and changed many times over many years. As they docked, Tayo prepared himself. He had trained for many situations in his military career, but he had never trained for this. No one had. In all the history of the Carillion people, no one had ever actually spoken to a human face to face. When the doors opened, they saw him. Commander Q-Su was standing with a group of armed soldiers. He was tall and strong, with a face that had been made hard by many years of difficult work. His eyes were sharp and cold. When he looked at Tayo, it was like looking into the eyes of someone who had made many difficult decisions and who would make many more. "Follow me," Q-Su said simply. They walked through the station in silence. The other humans they passed were all watching carefully. These were not the wild, crazy creatures from the old stories. These were soldiers, professional soldiers, well-trained and organized. They moved with purpose and confidence. Q-Su led them to a room with a long table. There were windows in the room, and through them they could see the dead zone. They could see the broken ships floating in the darkness. They could see the graveyard of space. "Sit," Q-Su said. When everyone was seated, Q-Su began to speak. His voice was quiet, but there was power in every word. 300 years ago, the galaxy decided that humans were too dangerous to live in peace. We were too unpredictable, too willing to do what needed to be done, too hard to control. So the empires of the galaxy came together and made a choice. They decided to push us into the edge of space, into this isolated corner, and then they built walls to keep us here. He paused and looked at each of them, one by one. We could have fought. We could have tried to hold territory in the main galaxy. We could have tried to compete with the great empires, but we were smart enough to understand something important. We understood that we would lose. We were fewer in number. We had less resources. So instead, we made another choice. We chose isolation. We built our own space here. And we prepared. Q-Su walked to the window and pointed out at the graveyard of ships. Every empire that came to test us learned the same lesson. The first came 300 years ago. They thought we were weak. They were wrong. They sent 10,000 ships. They are still here, floating in the darkness. The second came 200 years ago. They thought we were fewer than we claimed. They were wrong too. The third came only 50 years ago, and they were the smartest of all. They sent the strongest fleet they could make. He turned back to face them. That fleet is still out there. Every ship, every soldier. They are all still here, but they are not coming home. None of them will ever come home. Min-ah's face had become very pale. Sung-ho was gripping the edge of the table so hard his fingers had turned white. "Why are you telling us this?" Tayo asked. His voice did not shake, even though he wanted it to. Q-Su sat down at the head of the table. "Because you need to understand what you are dealing with. Because the galaxy needs to understand. For 300 years, there has been a warning. That warning has kept all of you safe. That warning has kept us isolated. And we have accepted that isolation. We do not want your trade. We do not want your politics. We do not want your wars. We want only to be left alone." He leaned forward. "But that warning is becoming old. New civilizations are being born. New empires are growing strong. Some of them do not remember the stories. Some of them do not believe the warnings. So I am making it clear, here and now, in front of you, so that you can tell the galaxy. If anyone comes into this space again with weapons, they will die. Not their ships will be damaged, not some of them will be killed. All of them will die, every last one. And then we will wait for the next group, and we will kill them too, for as long as it takes. The silence in the room was complete. Even the machines seemed to stop making sounds. The rescue, Teo said carefully. The bright star. What will happen to them? They will be released at the boundary, Kyusu answered. We will give them supplies and information to explain where they went. They will tell the truth. That will be enough. And us? Jiwoo asked quietly. Kyusu looked at her for a long moment. You showed mercy when you could have ignored the signal. You came into unknown space to save strangers. That is something we respect. So you will go home. You will tell your government. You will tell the High Council. You will tell everyone in the galaxy. He stood up. And you will tell them this. The humans are real. We are here. We are organized. We are strong. And we will never ever lose a war that is fought in our space. That is the message. That is all they need to know. As they walked back to their shuttle, Teo understood something that most of the galaxy had forgotten. The warning was not a threat. The warning was a fact. It was the simple truth about what happened when you tested the humans. And now he had to carry that knowledge home, knowing that nothing would ever be quite the same again. The shuttle rose into the darkness, carrying the message back to the wider galaxy. Behind them, Commander Kyusu watched from the station window, and somewhere in the back of his mind, he was already preparing for the day when someone would not listen to the warning. That day would come. They always did. And when it did, humanity would be ready. The High Council chamber was built in the shape of a great circle. Representatives from 40 different civilizations sat in their assigned sections, each one watching the others with careful eyes. This was the center of galactic power. This was where the major decisions were made. This was where the future of all intelligent life in the galaxy was shaped. Commander Teo stood in the center of the circle. Around him, thousands of eyes were watching. He had been briefed on what to say. He had been told what information was important. But he knew that nothing could have prepared him for the moment when he actually had to speak these words. The humans exist, he said clearly. They are organized. They have built a civilization in what we call the dead zone. And they have shown us that they are willing and able to defend their territory with absolute force. The chamber exploded into noise. Everyone was speaking at once. Some were angry, some were afraid, some were in shock. The only sound louder than the voices was the gavel of the council master, trying to bring order. Finally, silence returned. The council master, an old Carillion named Master Yunho, looked at Teo and waited for him to continue. Commander Kyusu told us that every fleet that has entered human space in the last 300 years has been destroyed completely, Teo said. There are no survivors. There are no ships that returned. The humans have shown that they possess weapons and technology that we do not fully understand. Most importantly, they have shown that they are willing to use lethal force against any threat. A representative from the Vex Empire stood up. Her name was Nari, and she was a military commander, not a politician. She was ambitious, and she was not afraid of conflict. This is a threat to all of us, she said loudly. If we allow this human civilization to grow in power, they will eventually become strong enough to threaten the entire galaxy. We must act now, while they are still isolated and cut off from resources. We must destroy them before they can become a real danger. Master Heijun, the oldest member of the council, stood slowly. He was very old, older than most species even lived to be. He had seen many empires rise and fall. He had seen wars and peace and wars again. His voice was soft, but everyone listened. "Commander Nari speaks from fear," Haijun said. "Fear is a dangerous advisor. Commander Teo has told us that the humans are willing and able to defend themselves. This is not new information. This is what we have suspected for 300 years. The difference is that now we know it is true." He looked around the chamber slowly, making sure to see every representative. "The humans are not asking for anything. They are not demanding resources or territory. They are not attacking us or threatening us. They are simply asking to be left alone. This is something we can give them. This is something that costs us nothing." "It costs us security," Nari shot back. "Every moment that they grow stronger, we become weaker. We must act." In the days and weeks that followed, the debate continued. The council was divided. Some agreed with Haijun's peaceful approach. Others, particularly the military leaders of the stronger empires, began to talk about the dangers of leaving the humans unchecked. One person who was listening very carefully was Commander Nari herself. She had begun to gather support from the military forces of several empires. She had started to make plans that did not require the approval of the council. She was going to do what she believed was necessary to protect the galaxy, regardless of what the politicians wanted. Deep within the military networks of the Vex Empire, Nari met with commanders from 7 other civilizations. They sat in a secure room, hidden from the eyes of the council. "The council will never approve military action," Nari said. "They are too cautious, too afraid of offending someone. So we will not ask for their permission. We will gather our forces. We will prepare for war. And we will strike the humans before they know what is happening." A commander from the Zelthian Empire, a man named Rosun, spoke up. "What if the humans are as powerful as Commander Teo claims? What if we cannot win?" "Then we will have tried," Nari said simply. "And we will have shown the galaxy that we are willing to fight for our future. That is more than the council will do." The plan was developed in secret. A fleet would be gathered from 8 different empires. It would be the largest military force ever assembled in the history of the galaxy. Hundreds of ships, thousands of soldiers, weapons that had been designed to destroy entire star systems. With such a force, nothing in the galaxy could stand against them. The humans, isolated and unprepared, would not have a chance. But what Nari did not know was that there was someone in the military network who did not agree with her plan. Jiwoo had been promoted within the intelligence division of the Carillion military. Her job was to watch what other civilizations were doing. As she monitored the communications between the 8 empires, she saw the preparations. She saw the ships being gathered. She saw the weapons being moved into position. She went directly to Taiyo with her information. "They are going to attack," Jiwoo said. "Nari has convinced the military leaders of 8 civilizations to form a coalition. They are gathering a fleet right now. I do not know exactly when they plan to strike, but I know it will be soon." Teo looked at the data on his screen. 8 civilizations, hundreds of ships. It was everything the Vex and their allies could throw at a single target. It was everything they had feared when Kyushu had warned them. "I need to contact the humans," Teo said. "I need to warn them." He prepared a message on a secure channel, using codes that only Commander Kyushu would understand. The message was brief. "The attack is coming. A coalition of 8 civilizations is gathering a fleet. You have perhaps 1 month before they strike." For a long time, there was no response. Teo waited and waited, checking his communications system constantly. He was beginning to think that Kyushu might not respond at all. Then finally, a message came through. But it was not what Teo expected. Instead of gratitude or concern or any kind of alarm, the message simply contained a single sentence and a sound that might have been laughter. The sentence read, "Thank you for the warning, Teo. We will make good use of it." and the sound that followed was something that chilled Teo to his very core. It was the sound of someone who was not afraid, the sound of someone who had been waiting for this moment, the sound of someone who had already prepared for every possibility and who welcomed the chance to show the galaxy exactly what they were capable of doing. In that moment, Teo understood something that even Commander Q-Su had not said directly. The humans had not been hoping the warning would be enough. They had been waiting for someone to test them. They had been preparing for this war for 300 years, and now it was finally time to show the galaxy what that preparation meant. The combined fleet entered human space on a morning that seemed like any other. The Alliance had gathered 470 ships of every class and type. There were massive battleships that could destroy entire moons. There were fast attack fighters that moved like birds through space. There were support vessels and command ships and weapons platforms. It was, without question, the largest military force the galaxy had ever assembled. The commanders believed it was impossible for the humans to survive an assault of this magnitude. They were wrong. Teo watched from the observation deck of his ship as the battle unfolded across every sensor array. The Carillion frontier was at a safe distance, far enough away to see what was happening but not close enough to participate. This was not the Carillion War. This was not their fight. But they were watching, because Teo needed to know what humanity was truly capable of doing. The first human ships appeared from behind the asteroid fields. There were only 17 of them. 17 ships against 470. Even a child could do the math. The humans should have been destroyed in moments. But something was different about the way the human ships moved. They did not move like ships that were trying to run away. They did not move like ships that were trying to hide. They moved like predators that had already decided how the hunt would end. The first wave of the Coalition fleet launched their attack. Hundreds of missiles filled the space between the fleets. Thousands of laser weapons activated. The sensors showed a wall of energy and fire moving toward the small group of human ships. And then the human ships moved. They did not dodge randomly. They did not try to take evasive action like normal ships did. Instead, they moved with perfect coordination, as if they were all parts of a single organism. They moved to positions that seemed strange and inefficient at first, but then Teo understood. Every human ship was moving to a position where it could see every other human ship. Every human ship was positioned to provide support to every other human ship. It was like watching a dance that had been practiced for centuries. The missiles and laser weapons struck empty space. The human ships were no longer where they had been a moment before, but within seconds, human weapons began to fire. They fired with accuracy that seemed impossible. With each shot, a coalition ship was hit. With each hit, a ship was destroyed, not damaged, destroyed completely. The weapons turned ships into expanding clouds of fire and debris. The coalition commanders ordered a tactical retreat. They regrouped and tried again. This time they sent 100 ships against the 17 human ships. The result was the same. The humans moved with perfect precision. Their weapons never missed, and the coalition fleet was devastated. By the time the first hour of battle was over, the coalition had lost 130 ships. 130 ships destroyed, with no human ships damaged at all. Nari stood on the bridge of her command ship and watched the battle reports coming in. Her face was becoming pale. Her confidence was turning to fear. She tried to maintain her authority, but everyone around her could see that she was losing control of the situation. All ships, concentrate your fire on the designated targets, she ordered. But the orders were slow and confused now. The human ships were striking faster than the coalition could respond. Ships were being destroyed before their commanders even knew they were under attack. Another hour passed. The coalition had lost 200 ships, then 300. The space that had seemed so full of military power at the beginning of the battle was now becoming a graveyard of burning wreckage. Minna sat in the communications center of the Carillion frontier, listening to the distress calls from the coalition fleet. They were screaming now, calling for help, calling for evacuation, calling for mercy, but there was no help coming. There was no evacuation. There was only death. "This is impossible," Sung-Ho whispered beside her. "This cannot be happening. We outnumber them by more than 20 to 1. "Numbers do not matter," Mina said quietly. "Training matters. Organization matters. Will matters. The humans have all three. The coalition has only numbers." By the time 4 hours had passed, the coalition fleet was broken. Of the 470 ships that had entered human space, only 120 remained undamaged enough to run. The rest were destroyed or dying. The humans had suffered no losses. Neri ordered a full retreat. Every remaining ship that could move began to flee back toward the boundary of human space, but the humans did not let them go easily. As the coalition ships tried to escape, they found themselves being herded, pushed toward the densest part of the wreckage field, directed like animals being moved to their final destination. Then something happened that made everyone watching understand the true nature of what they were dealing with. The human ships stopped firing. They stopped chasing. They simply turned and watched as the coalition ships fled. And as Nari's command ship passed through the boundary back into normal space, she realized something terrible. The humans had let them escape, not out of mercy, but out of choice. The humans could have destroyed every single ship. They could have killed everyone. But they had decided not to. That was somehow more frightening than if they had killed them all. When the survivors began to arrive back at the galactic core, the reports were confused and often contradictory. Some said there were thousands of human ships. Others said there were dozens. Some said the humans had weapons that could destroy entire star systems. Others said the weapons were not as powerful, but they were used with such precision that it did not matter. The only thing everyone agreed on was that the coalition fleet had been absolutely destroyed, and the humans had won without suffering a single loss. Commander Q-Su himself appeared in the broadcast that was sent to the High Council. He was standing on the deck of a human warship, surrounded by officers who looked calm and professional. He was not angry. He was not threatening. He was simply speaking facts. "The invasion has ended," he said. "The coalition forces have been eliminated. Their ships have been destroyed or have fled. Our forces remain ready to defend our space. I have one message for the galaxy. This ends the discussion. Do not test us again." The broadcast ended. In the High Council chamber and in military command centers across the galaxy, leaders and commanders sat in stunned silence. The largest military force in galactic history had been destroyed, not by a larger force, not through tricks or deception, simply by the superior training, organization, and skill of a civilization that had spent 300 years preparing for exactly this moment. The age of testing humanity was over. Now the age of respecting humanity was beginning. And everyone understood, without being told, that this was the moment when the galaxy would change forever. The High Council chamber was filled with nervous energy. Representatives from every civilization in the galaxy had come to this emergency session. Some were angry, some were afraid, most were confused about what came next. The complete destruction of the largest military force in galactic history was not something anyone had expected. The possibility of peace seemed impossible now. How could you make peace with people who had just proven they could destroy an entire alliance? Master Haijun stood slowly. His ancient body moved with difficulty, but his mind was still sharp. Everyone in the chamber knew who he was. They knew his history. They knew that he had lived through more conflicts and peace negotiations than anyone else alive. "We have a choice," Haijun said. His voice was soft, but in the silence everyone could hear him clearly. "We can respond to what has happened with more violence. We can attempt to build an even larger coalition, to gather more ships, to try again. Or we can accept what has happened and begin to think about how we can live with the humans, not against them. A military commander from the Vex Empire stood up angrily. You want us to surrender? To accept that we are inferior to them? I want us to be alive, Haijun replied. The humans have proven that they can defeat us. They have also proven something else. They did not follow the defeated coalition fleet back through the boundary. They did not attempt to invade the rest of the galaxy. They simply stopped and waited. This tells me something important. It tells me that they do not want to conquer us. They simply want to be left alone. Commander Teo was asked to speak again. The council wanted to know everything about the humans. What they wanted, what would satisfy them, what could be done to prevent another attack. Commander Q-Su told me something when I was on his station, Teo said. He said the humans do not want trade, they do not want politics, they do not want war. They want only to be left alone. They are not hungry for power or expansion. They are satisfied with their space. What they want is for the galaxy to understand and accept this. But how can we be sure of this? Someone asked from across the chamber. We cannot be sure of anything, Haijun answered. But we can make agreements. We can create treaties. We can establish rules that protect both the humans and ourselves. If the humans keep to their space and we keep to ours, then there is no reason for conflict. There is no reason for war. The debate continued for weeks. Slowly, the idea of a treaty began to take shape. It would be different from any treaty that had been made before. It would not be a trade agreement or a military alliance. It would be something simpler and more fundamental. It would be a treaty of separation. It would define the boundary of human space and make it official. It would make it clear to every civilization in the galaxy that this space belonged to the humans, and that entering it without permission would be an act of war. Teo was chosen as the representative to negotiate with the humans. He did not want the job. He was just a military commander who had accidentally discovered a civilization that everyone else had forgotten about, but no one else was trusted by both sides. The humans knew him. The council trusted him, so he accepted the responsibility. The negotiations took place on the station where Teo had first met Commander Q-Su. The human commander was different this time. He was still professional, still careful, but there was something in his face that suggested he was pleased. The humans had won. Now they could stop fighting and simply live. The treaty will establish a neutral zone, Q-Su said, looking at the documents in front of them. No military vessels will enter this zone. No weapons will be tested in this zone. It will be a buffer between human space and the rest of the galaxy. And what if someone breaks the treaty? Teo asked carefully. Q-Su looked up from the documents. His eyes were cold and empty. Then we will remind them why no one enters human space. We will take whatever action is necessary to ensure that the violation does not happen again. We will take whatever action is necessary to ensure that it never happens a third time. The message was clear. The humans were willing to make peace. They were willing to accept a treaty, but they would not accept any further violations. Any civilization that broke the agreement would face the same fate as the coalition fleet: complete and absolute destruction. The treaty was signed by representatives of every civilization in the galaxy. For the first time in recorded history, every species agreed on something. They agreed to leave the humans alone. They agreed to respect the boundary. They agreed that the space beyond the neutral zone belonged to humanity, and that no one would enter it without permission. When the treaty was complete and signed, Haijun made a statement that was broadcast across the entire galaxy. Today, we have finally learned what the warning meant, the Old Master said. 300 years ago, the humans were pushed into isolation. They were given a choice: submit, die, or disappear. They chose to disappear. They chose to build a civilization in hidden space, away from the rest of us, and they spent 300 years preparing to defend that choice. Now we understand. The humans are not our enemy. They are simply a people who want to be free. And today, we have finally given them what they have always wanted. We have given them peace. In the weeks that followed, life in the galaxy returned to normal. Trade continued. Politics continued. Wars and peace agreements continued among the other civilizations. But there was one thing that never changed. No ship ever came too close to the boundary of human space. No civilization ever attempted to violate the treaty. No one ever forgot what happened to those who tested the humans. Commander Teo attended the signing ceremony on both sides. When he was with the council, they thanked him for preventing another war. When he was with the humans, Kyusu simply nodded. "You did well," the human commander said. "You helped your people understand what we are. You helped them accept the reality. That takes wisdom." "What will happen now?" Teo asked. "With the humans hidden away, isolated with all of this power you have developed?" Kyusu looked out at the stars visible from the station. "Now we will live," he said simply. "That is all we have ever wanted. The galaxy will continue to grow and change. New civilizations will be born. New empires will rise and fall. But the humans will be here, in our space, building our own world. And as long as the treaty is kept, that is enough." Teo realized something in that moment. The humans had never wanted to conquer the galaxy. They had never wanted power or influence over other civilizations. They had only wanted one thing: to be left alone. And now that they had it, they were happy. Completely, absolutely happy. As Teo returned to his ship to go back to the galactic core, he understood that he had been part of something very important. He had been part of the moment when the galaxy finally understood that some lines, once drawn, should never be crossed. He had helped bring peace, not through weakness or surrender, but through understanding. Through finally accepting that the humans were not the enemy. They were simply something that could not be defeated, something that could not be controlled, and something that deserved to be left alone.